Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to my Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Thank you. Welcome to the Party Pal. This is Fountainhead Forum 176. I'm talking to Joseph Collins Jr., who is running for president. He's seeking the nomination of the Libertarian Party. Hopefully we'll meet him up in Washington, D.C., which is about 5 weeks away right now. Yeah, I'm still one more candidate I'm really trying to get, but otherwise this might be the last of my playlist. So how are you, Joseph?
I'm doing phenomenal. How about yourself?
That's great. You certainly seem like you got a lot of optimism. You got a good smile. This is certainly good things to have in a presidential candidate.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So how did you become a libertarian and get involved with the Libertarian Party?
Well, I was a long-term Republican.
Yes.
Really conservative, and I was also a Republican delegate for a while. And I saw the turmoil inside of the Republican Party, and I realized that this turmoil, in spite of what media says, there's a huge shift inside of the party itself. Excuse me, there's a huge shift inside of the party itself, and a lot of people are dissatisfied and are not happy with the current way that the Republican Party is going. And I happen to be one of those people, and I just begin to think about things from a different perspective. I begin to think about things from what would be best for America, and could a party actually win this election and this term that's not a Republican or a Democrat. And the Libertarian Party provides that for myself as well as for others who may be seeking offices throughout the nation. And the Libertarian Party is exciting, reducing government, putting the power back into the hands of the people. Those things are all appealing to me and make a lot of sense to me. Cutting back areas of government that are wasteful, reducing taxes. Those things are all things that are important to me, and having the freedom and liberties that are afforded by the Constitution. So all of those things are very important to me, and that's why I got excited about being a libertarian and wanting to be part of the Libertarian Party.
Yes, and it seems you have more and more people on the red team who don't seem to value those things.
Yeah, well, we're all Americans. We got freedom of choice, freedom of mind. What can you do, if a person
Yes.
doesn't always agree with you? But I think that this is the time, if there's ever been a time in the history of America, this is a time for the right third party candidate to actually win the White House. And I'm playing to win. I'm not playing simply to just win the Libertarian nomination, which I intend to do. I'm playing to win the White House, and period. And I think we can then go in and change legislation and change rules and change things to help the Libertarian Party overall. And that to me has been very exciting and very appealing.
Who are some people, past or present, in the political world that you consider heroes, or people that you say, I want to be like him or her?
Well, there's this guy named Joseph Collins Jr. And when I heard about that guy, I just got super excited all the way around, and I said, "That's the guy I want to be like," But certainly, there are some people that I admire that have been political forerunners. Certainly, I admire Rand Paul. I think that goes without saying. I admire Ronald Reagan for a lot of things. I admire Jimmy Carter. I think Jimmy Carter was a great president, although he didn't come off as a strong president. But I admire the work that he did in helping communities and helping people, and I admire the work that he did after he left the White House in helping communities and helping families and helping those that were in need. Those are just a few guys that I could just think of. I got a chance to visit Abraham Lincoln's grave in Springfield, Illinois, and it just brought such a nostalgic thing for me because I got a chance to visit the grave of the person who signed the Emancipation Proclamation and the catalyst for the 13th Amendment. So those things are very, I think he's the kind of guy that I really kind of like where he was coming from for the most part.
I don't know if I've ever heard anybody say he admired both Jimmy Carter and Reagan. I mean, that was the first time I was really aware of a presidential election. So and of course I do remember it being an absolute landslide for Reagan.
Here's the thing that was very interesting.
But Jimmy Carter has had the most amazing presidential retirement of anybody, and it's also the longest.
He has the longest too.
Yeah,
yes,
I mean, it's almost 44. I mean, we're looking at 43 years, and fortunately, he is in hospice now. But yeah, it's
correct.
And you know, I hope Jimmy makes 100. I really do. We finally
have
a president who gets to 100. I think that would just be awesome. But yeah,
and so do I. And he's a great person. You know, sometimes you want a person who's just a really good person beyond politics, right? Beyond politics and beyond what we do in politics, you want a person that's just a really good person. And to me, Jimmy Carter was a really good person. He was so good, and so people don't really realize that during that Contra affair, when Reagan was just stepping into the office, they made it look like Ronald Reagan was the one that actually got the hostages free, when in all actuality, history records that it was Jimmy Carter's push, but Ronald Reagan got the credit for it. But that's the kind of guy that I think we should aspire to be in some cases.
Yeah, Jimmy's got it. You know, I think there were times people who were socialists were just misguided. I don't think they can be anymore, but it's changed a lot since then. And Jimmy also,
yes, it has.
And you know, when he got to be governor of Georgia, he said, there is no segregation anymore. It's like, and this was in Georgia in the 70s. It was still hard to do that. Good for him. You know, so it was Reagan certainly, and you know, Reagan was by far, by far the most popular president in my lifetime. I don't think, and so although his actions did not match his words, which was quite unfortunate, but.
And that happens in a lot of cases with a lot of politicians. And what I have gone into this race to say is that once we win the White House, if you can get maybe 5 to 10 things actually through Congress and through your presidency, you've actually done a very, very good job in terms of that kind of way. And Reagan was an interesting person. You know, if you look at what history records, he was a very interesting person, to say the least. I don't agree with all of his politics. I can't say that, but he was a very interesting person, and he really knew how to communicate. And I kind of take some of that into what I do to be a great communicator, to really try to convey messages that could really help America and Americans. That's really what I try to do.
Yeah. What is your experience with as a communicator? Have you been part of Toastmasters, or have you been just done a lot of speeches, or have you been organizing groups, or what's your history with that?
I've done, first of all, what most people don't know is that I'm a retired pastor, 40 years actually. And so I've done speeches all over this country, to be quite frank. And but the thing is that I'm not a Toastmaster. I support the Toastmaster organizations, as I also support women's shelters. I've supported women's shelters through the years here in Los Angeles. I support a lot of different organizations that I'm not necessarily a part of. But being a communicator is one of those things that really can change the heart of people. And I think in this election, people are hopeless and they need hope. And being able to communicate and convey that message really shows that we could be strong leadership. We can have strong leadership, bring hope back to America, and really get an agenda across to the American people. And that to me is just amazing.
Yeah, retired pastor. I never would have guessed.
Is that?
Yeah, you don't. Well, I would have guessed. You know, you do come off as being the pastor, but not retired. I would have figured you'd still be doing it. Of course, and a lot of pastors, they love it so much that they never really retire.
Yeah, sometimes you got to know. I was playing basketball. I love basketball. I love playing basketball. And I was playing basketball one day about, I don't know, it had to be about maybe 8 years ago. And I was on the court and I was doing my thing and I was fading. But this time I ran down the court and I took the shot. I made the shot. But when I landed, my knees hurt so bad. My knees hurt like
Yeah.
so bad. And I knew that I was out of the game. And sometimes you got to know when it's time for you to get out of the game. And so I got out of that game that day. It took me over 2 months to heal, believe it or not. And I just never played basketball in a competitive way like that again. And sometimes you just got to know when it's time to change life. It's time to do something that can help all Americans, help all people. And that's what this is. That's why I'm running for president of the United States.
Yeah. Yeah, basketball. Now I got to know, who are your basketball heroes?
Oh my God, you know who they are. Come on now, it's Kobe
I do
Bryant.
know who they are.
You
Okay.
know, Bill Laimbeer,
Laimbeer.
Michael
Oh my goodness.
Jordan. Oh my God, yeah, Bill Laimbeer, Michael Jordan. I even love AC Green because he was a great
Oh,
support person from that. Magic
you
Johnson.
said, yeah. Look,
Yeah,
I was a teenager in the Showtime era. I'm a lifelong
I
Laker fan,
love
but I,
Showtime. I
but I'm
love
also
Showtime.
but I'm also from West Virginia, and that's Jerry West. So I
Hey, Jerry West is a Laker too. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, they're
Jerry
all
West is a
Lakers.
Laker too.
Yeah,
You've got
I
to
was
appreciate
AC
what these
Green. Yeah,
guys have done.
AC Green was a great.
AC Green, you know,
Well,
um, these guys are just incredible basketball players. I used to
you,
love Bill Laimbeer. Oh my God, I
I
love
can't believe
those
I
guys.
said Bill Laimbeer. I never would have guessed that in a million years.
Oh yeah, I love those
He was
guys. I love
he was
those
a
guys.
goon. He was
He
always.
was, but I love you.
I
You
mean,
know how tough
he
that
was.
guy was. He was tough.
He had a worse reputation than Dennis Rodman at,
He did.
than Dennis Rodman did. That's how bad he. That's how much of a fighter he was. When he was playing
You
for the
know what? Bill
Detroit.
Laimbeer was a fighter. Yeah, I love a fighter. To be honest with you,
Yeah,
guys.
well, another reason why I love AC Green is AC Green plays in the '80s, then he comes back in '99 and 2000. It's like,
Yes,
I'm gonna show O'Neal and Bryant how to win, and it's like,
that's right. That's right. That's
and he
right.
did.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. I love AC Green. You gotta love him. Michael Cooper. I love those.
Yeah,
Oh my God. You can't say enough about Dennis Rodman. Without Dennis Rodman, there is no Michael Jordan. Dennis Rodman, Scottie Pippen. Without those guys, there is no Michael Jordan. And Michael Jordan was great,
Oh,
but
Michael
you
Jordan.
needed
Yeah,
that
Michael
team.
Jordan was great, and he's always just so quiet, And it's funny. I don't know if I will. I'm always going to remember when I heard about Johnson retiring, and I'm always going to remember when and where when I learned Kobe was dead. It was so what
Yeah.
awful days those were. And of course, we when Johnson said he was HIV, we really weren't sure, but he's still around, fortunately. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yes. And the thing with Kobe too is just that was just so
yeah,
untimely, and that was just so untimely. I'm still expecting Kobe to do a Machiavelli and come
yeah,
back. I'm still expecting that moment at any day. It would not surprise me. Kobe Bryant is back.
yeah,
I'm looking for that. Although I know it's probably not very likely, but just in my
yeah.
mind, it's one of those things that I hope for.
Yeah, he was such a hard worker. It was just so yeah. So yeah,
Kobe work ethic made him great. It wasn't that he was just great on the court. He was great practicing to be on the court, and those things made Kobe great. And sometimes we want to step into great moments, but those great moments happen because you are prepared off the court. And he spent a lot of time preparing himself off the court. One day, Kobe Bryant called me. I got this call from Kobe Bryant.
oh my goodness,
Um, yeah, it's a true story. I got a
yeah,
call from Kobe Bryant, and I thought somebody was playing a joke on me. Really, honestly, I
yeah.
just was like, I was like, this is. I was like, oh, come on, man. He says, no, it's
This
Kobe.
is yeah. I know you think it's a
He
joke.
wanted to be part of something that I was working on at the time. We never did anything because I literally hung up in his face, and I told to my regret, I regret this to this day. I tell my secretary, somebody calls back here talking about their Kobe Bryant. Tell them to go. Tell them I don't even want. I don't have time for them. And they did. And as it turned out, it was actually Kobe Bryant. Actually, so that was very interesting.
I bet, yeah, I bet celebrities sometimes deal with that a lot. Though they probably call, and because the first thing is this really Kobe Bryant? You know, and you,
Exactly.
you know,
Exactly. You want to know a story? Can I tell you a story?
yeah, yeah, sure, yeah,
I wanted to be when I was younger. I wanted to be this great promoter. I wanted to be the greatest promoter ever. Right. And I had started a talent agency, and so I was saying, I want to be the greatest promoter. I said, who could I work with to become the greatest promoter ever? And so in my mind, I says, I want to work with Frank Sinatra, right? True story. And so Frank Sinatra was represented by Rogers and Cowan, and I was represented by Rogers and Cowan at the time. And so I talked to my publicist at Rogers and Cowan. I said, I'd really like to work with Frank Sinatra. I'd love to do a concert. He says, I think Frank would do that, and so I'm gonna. And so I get a number to Frank Sinatra, right? And so I call this number, and I'm thinking I'm going to get Frank Sinatra's agent, but Frank answers the phone. So I'm like, he says, hi, this is Francis. Now here I am, this young guy. I was in my 20s at the time. I says, Francis. He says, listen, I would like to work with Mr. Sinatra. I'm going to be a great promoter, and I want to promote the most biggest concert for Frank Sinatra that he could ever do. He says, okay, this is Francis. I didn't know he called himself Francis, right? Because he was
yeah,
actually Francis Sinatra, and
yeah.
so
Francis
I'm
Sinatra, yeah,
right. And so he says, well, I said, well, Mr. Sinatra, I would really love to do a concert with you. Would you allow me to do this concert with you? And he says, sure, I would love to do a concert with you. I looked at the phone. I got Frank Sinatra, and he says, I would love to do a concert with you. I was like, okay, let's go. So I talked to Frank Sinatra twice a week from that point to put together this concert, right?
yeah,
And so but I could never get a date. I was like, okay, Mr. Sinatra, Frank, I need a date. I need to get a date. He says, well, I'm going to get you a date, Joseph, and we're going to do it. I said, well, I can't get a venue. I can't put this together. It's going to be so great, but I need a date, right? So I could never get a date out of Frank Sinatra, but he wanted to do the concert, and I'm talking to Frank Sinatra twice a week, right? But one day I called, and Nancy answered the phone, right? Nancy. And I said, well, Nancy, I thought Nancy was just his assistant, right? And so she says, well, Frank is really excited about doing this concert with you. He's told me all about it. He just can't wait to do it, right? And I said, but Nancy, I just got to get a date, and I know you're his assistant. And I didn't know it was Nancy Sinatra. You know what I mean? Like it was. But as it turns out, I was one of the first people that knew when Frank Sinatra passed because I called all the time, but Frank Sinatra had been sick, but he was talking to me through his sickness, and I just thought that was one of the coolest moments in my life.
So you never got the show, or
He passed away. He was actually sick through that time, and this was one of those things that motivated him and kept him going through his sickness. Because later
yeah,
Nancy thanked me for, which I didn't know at the time, was there was no internet like it is today. There
yeah,
was no, you literally had to push the buttons on the phone. There was none of that like it is today. But back then, it was one of those things, and it was just really a
yeah,
wonderful point in my life to talk to Frank Sinatra twice a week. And this went on for about 3-4 months. And it was
yeah.
cool.
He really did want to do a show. Yeah, I've had some. I've been trying to schedule some older people too, and I noticed they're in some declining health, and I'm just like,
Right.
it's hard, yeah, because and some of my consider friends have said I'm not giving up on my friends. It's yeah, that is a cool story. So so you were into promoting concerts and stuff like that. So you know something about public relations then. What is your
Oh
experience?
yeah, definitely.
Of course, being a
Definitely.
pastor also, but what else is your experience with
Well,
public?
no, I own TV stations, so I've been in
Oh,
television and media for 40 years as well. And
oh wow. Okay.
so, yeah. So being in media, it teaches you a lot. It teaches you a lot about moving media. It teaches you a lot about people. It teaches you a lot about broadcasting and what it is that you need in order to really get an agenda through. And so I've been doing media for, I don't know, good 45 years,
Yeah.
since I was 16 actually. And so today being 60, it's just, I've been doing it forever. It's like the back of my hand actually, and so in media, we made a few years ago, we made a $50 billion formal offer to AT&T to purchase Warner Media from AT&T before Discovery did it. They didn't accept our offer, but those are the kinds of things that I've been involved with in media. Now that my non-disclosure is over, we made a multi-billion-dollar bid to buy BET from Paramount Global, and so those are the kinds of things that I've been involved with in media. So I've been in media for a long time, a very, very long time.
So how'd you get started in media?
Oh man, I just love it. I don't know, man. I got started, man.
I
I
mean,
don't
you're
know.
16. What were you maybe making coffee at the local radio station or, something like that? Or, I mean,
No, I actually used to go when I was 16. I used to actually work at a radio station in Pomona, California. A great observation. And I used to go collect the money for all of the advertisers. So I was the collector. So I drove around to collect the money from the advertisers that ran commercials on the radio station. And I just spent a lot of time around the radio station. And I had a great high school teacher. Her name was Barbara Barkemeyer. And she was just a great inspirational theater and drama teacher, really, really good. And I learned so much through that time, and I knew that being in media was one of the things that was a very important part of my life.
so you went from high school and then you got it. So then where'd you go from there? You've always been you were in Pomona. So you've always been in the Los Angeles area or?
Pretty much, our family was from Arkansas, a little town called Malvern, and so I spent a lot of time as a kid growing up in Malvern, Arkansas, with my grandfather and the like that. And so, but I um, I pretty much can say I'm pretty much a Californian, so to speak, because of my life is where it's been, but it's been all over the place, really.
But there's been a lot of media in California. So yeah, that makes sense, especially around Los
Well,
Angeles.
it's oddly enough, my TV stations are in Pensacola, Florida, Mobile, Alabama, um, Pensacola, Florida, Mobile, Alabama, and Wichita, Kansas. So it's interesting. And when I started the company, I would drive. I had this old 1982 Mercedes-Benz diesel, and I drove around the country setting up my TV stations. you know, um, all over America, actually. At one point, we had over 70 TV stations, which was really cool. I know this is a different kind of interview for you, isn't it? It's like,
They go. Well, I've done over 170 of them now. So it's a
oh, okay, cool.
but lots of people got their stories, and I just love hearing people's stories. So you had a station in Pensacola and a station where it's
Pensacola, Mobile, Alabama,
okay,
Wichita, Kansas.
and you said Arkansas, is that right?
No, my family, we grew up in Arkansas.
Okay, but you had to say, and of course, Pensacola and Mobile actually aren't that far apart either. So
Yeah.
yeah, you just kind of buy up the stations where you can, or there's always a
Well, we
lot
buy them up
of
as
TV
long as
stations.
people watch TV. We love it. The scope of television has changed now, so we
Yeah,
launched URBT News, so people can go and
URTV
get our
news.
URBT News, your bold trending news, urbtnews.com.
Oh, okay.
So Urban, Robert, Bobby, Tom,
Yeah.
urbtnews.com. So we launched our app, and we're streaming, and the app is incredible, and people can download it for free and get our things like that.
Yeah, you've certainly seen the landscape of media change a lot.
Oh yeah.
How do you think those changes have impacted our country? I mean, better, worse? what's the good and what's the bad, because you would have gotten in. You probably would
Unfortunately,
have gotten
what
in
you
the late 70s or early 80s.
late eight, yeah, that's correct. So unfortunately, media has become polarized, right? And so you have people pushing narratives, which back in the day when you had Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan running, they kind of told the truth more. But now there's a lot of fake media, a lot of media is trying to push a narrative, and they try to lie inside of the narrative that they're pushing. And I think that that is one of the most unfortunate things that's happened in media as it relates to that. And you pretty much know if you're on Fox, you're going to push this narrative. If you're on MSNBC, you're going to push that narrative. And if you're on CNN, they're going to push a whole nother narrative. And so these narratives are very destructive, I think, to the American psychology because Americans don't really do complete research. They really more just go by what the news clips tell and show them. And now you have social media, which is adding its own thing in, so people can just make up whatever they want to make up, put it out there, and get 10 million views, and everybody believes it. So it's a very interesting time in media right now.
Yeah. What do you think we could do to fix the media right now? It seems with those issues we have right now. I mean,
That's a big question. I think inside of the Libertarian Party, they don't use media enough. I'm happy to do this right here, but inside of the party itself, they don't use media to their advantage, so that they're telling narratives and stories that really drive engagement. So I see that they don't really do that very well inside of our party. But outside of that, it's going to be very difficult to fix because the media landscape is segmented, and because it is segmented, you have advertisers that are trying to buy specific segments, and people are playing to those advertising base to try to get those dollars in to maintain their media companies.
yeah. Is it possible though that this is how it was at the beginning? Because in the days of newspapers, there was always a lot of competition among newspapers, and in a way, radio and TV kind of consolidated that and put a lot of the newspapers out of business.
I think we need a great newspaper right now, to be quite frank
Yeah.
with you. I think we really need a great newspaper. I don't know which one that is right now, but I do believe we really need a great newspaper. And we need different ideas. The whole
Yeah.
thing is that people want to tell their ideas. And the thing is that when you go on these social media platforms, you could be stifled in telling your idea. If the platform themselves doesn't agree with your idea or what you're saying, you could be stifled and they can stop you from what you're saying. One of the biggest tragedies that I saw in media was during the time of COVID. And in COVID, you had churches now, they forced churches, Donald Trump forced churches to shut down. Donald Trump closed church in America. I think that was just a really big mistake. Liquor stores were open, but churches were closed. You know, um, but more importantly, churches were then forced to go to social media platforms to try to reach their congregants. And the problem with them going to those platforms is that if the social media platform itself did not agree with the narrative of that ministry, they would shut that ministry off, or they would restrict that ministry's reach, or they would do those kinds of things. And to me, there's something oddly wrong with that. There's something oddly wrong with that because we have to protect freedom of speech in America. And right now, you have these large companies that are really distracting the freedom of speech, and to me, it's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's something that's changed. I mean, nobody got their telephone taken away because they were using it for things that the telephone company disagreed with. I mean,
Correct.
everybody had the telephone and everybody used it, and they didn't. And of course, they
Correct.
probably also wouldn't have had the ability to monitor all this stuff. But it's really, yeah, I find it very troubling. What do you?
What's even more troubling,
Yeah,
what's even more troubling to me, let me just say this to you, Chris. What's even more troubling to me is the government's use of technology
yeah,
to invade the privacy of of Americans. I have a severe problem with that. I have a severe problem with eavesdropping on citizens who have not broken the law, just to see if keywords are used that might say that this is a trigger for us to now come do something or take an action for the because of the actions of a specific group of 9/11. Why am I punished because of something in 9/11 that happened in 9/11? And I think the government is 100% wrong in invading the privacy of Americans. We have the right to privacy. We have a right to our freedoms. We have a right to our liberty. And to have that overreaching government do that, I have a severe problem with that.
Yeah, I totally agree. What we've accepted since then. That's what would you do on your if you're elected president? What would you do
Sure.
on your first day or your first week?
On my first day, my first week of presidency, and this isn't I would start dismantling the Securities Exchange Commission. I would go into the Securities Exchange Commission and I would start firing from the top down. I would go into there and I would go in and dismantle the Securities Exchange Commission. I think
Yeah.
that we have to protect American businesses. We have to protect businesses across our nation because we need the jobs. We don't need our jobs going to these other countries and stuff because of cheap labor and us. We need those jobs right here in America. We need them right here at home. And it starts with how companies are able to capitalize themselves to be successful. That would be like in my first 100 days,
Yeah.
I would completely revamp the Securities Exchange Commission. That would be like job one in my first 100 days.
Yeah. Well, since I brought that up because talking about surveillance and stuff, would you pardon Julian Assange and Edward Snowden?
I would totally pardon. Not only that, I would pardon quite a few other people too. I think that those guys, Julian Assange developed WikiLeaks, and he had a
Yeah.
platform which showed people information that the government didn't want to see, and that people released that information on that platform. I think that that is a freedom of speech act. I don't see the 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 harm in that at this point. I mean, I just don't see that, and I think that not only he and the other guy, I think that there are some others that should be pardoned, especially under the Biden regime. I mean, we have the criminal justice system needs to be completely reformed. We need to dismantle the current way that the criminal justice system works in America. It is not fair, specifically to people of color, and it is not a fair system. It is a interesting thing on how these things are done. I'm going to reform the criminal justice system in America for sure, 100%.
Since you also seem passionate about securities, I've naturally got to know what do you think about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency?
I think we've got to position ourselves now to have alternate currencies. I think being on a complete fiat monetary system, is not a good thing. I think that we have to really look at other monetary systems that can carry our company, our economy, because as you see right now, inflation is high. I mean, eggs are $8 a gallon, $8 a dozen here in Los Angeles. Gas is $6 a gallon for unleaded. I mean, inflation has gone beyond what people can afford. People are making life decisions while trying to get gas. Do I get gas or do I get food? There's something intrinsically wrong with that to me. And so we have to look at other alternative forms of currencies. We've got to look at alternative forms of bartering and trading. We've got to look at other things that make our country different and great. And so I have no problems with the Bitcoins and the other types of alternative currencies, and especially a Bitcoin, because that has a kind of thing to it where you could kind of, there's only this much number and this number is
Yes.
never going to go beyond that. And because it doesn't go beyond that, it holds its intrinsic price against this or whatever. I think those things are very important, and we have to support that and support greater barter type systems.
Yes. This is not financial advice. This is not tax advice. This is not legal advice. Anyway, And of course, we're also approaching the Bitcoin block halving, which happens every 4 years, and that increases the mining costs, and therefore will usually leads to an increase in the price of Bitcoin. If you look at the history of the 4-year cycles, but anyway, so yes. So you also mentioned, how, obviously, what do you think are some of the ways in which the justice system is tilted against, people of color, as you said, and maybe not just African Americans, but also maybe Hispanics as well.
Yeah, people of color, right?
You've probably seen it yourself. Well, you had to be in the Los Angeles area when Rodney King happened too. Yeah.
I was down the street. I literally lived
Yeah.
right down the street at the time when Rodney King happened. And it was one of those times in history, such as George Floyd, when you actually got to see what police brutality looked like. And until you live that experience, you don't really know what that's like. Like, I remember one time I was going out on a date and with my girl, and I got pulled over by the police. I was in my good clothes. I was pushed down on the street. I was held down right because I looked suspicious, not because I did anything. I've never had a criminal record, don't have a criminal background, never been incarcerated or anything to that effect. But to have been subjected to that as an American, I have a problem with that. And then knowing had I said the wrong thing, I could have been killed. Do you understand what I'm saying? Why should I have to raise my children to fear the people that are here and paid with American taxpayer dollars to protect us? Why should I have to do that? I want my children to live in a country where they can grow up with their inalienable rights to live free in America so long as they don't break the law. The problem is that sometimes the law is not right.
Yeah.
Sometimes the law itself is corrupt. And then what do you do when the law itself is corrupt? So you have Joe Biden, who is the author of the crime bill, which most of us look at as the three strikes law. That bill has done extreme harm to urban communities, specifically to Black Americans and to Hispanic Americans and to poor Americans. That thing has done extreme harm because now you've removed men from the communities. You've incarcerated these men on things that are, in some cases, not even true. But because we don't have systems or can't afford the same legal, uh, can't afford the same lawyers, can't afford the same legal defense as some of the counterparts can, you end up getting a court-appointed attorney, and you end up in a lot of trouble. And their thing is always, hey, let's create a settlement. Let's just get a settlement. You're going to do 3 years. You're going to do, but why would I want to settle with something? Well, if you go to court, you're now going to, you could face 10 years or 15 years. So you best settle and just do these 3 years. Now you 2 to 3 years, you get out of jail. Now you're now have the idea of a felon over you, or you have a conviction over you. So now that makes it difficult for you to get a job on some things that you might not have even done, or that might not have been severe enough for you to have been incarcerated in the first place. And to me, that's just wrong. It's 100% wrong. I am going to, and I know this is going to scare the prison systems in America, but I am going to dismantle the three strikes law in America. We're going to dismantle that thing and try to come up with a fair and just legal system that's put the power back in the hands of the judges, because crimes sometimes are on localized systems, localized ways. You don't need a mandatory minimum. So you said, we want to take the power out of the hands of the judge. No, I want to put the power back in the hands of the judges so the judges can make individualized decisions on individualized cases and not have this mandatory minimum. And those are things that I am just doggone passionate about. And when I become the president of the United States, I'm going to make sure that this is something that is addressed immediately. Immediately.
One thing else too, though, is we have a lot of victimless crimes. I mean, what do you think about, people who are in jail for nonviolent drug offenses who may have just, and maybe they had marijuana, maybe they were selling marijuana, but what do you think about
Again,
that?
like I said, I'm going to let a lot of people free Pardon a lot of people, specifically if it's on the federal level for a lot of those types of nonviolent crimes, because some of them are just ridiculous. We're just making the prison system rich, and I don't desire to do that. I desire to put more. If we're going to spend the money, let's put that money in education in urban areas. Let's create the next generation of scientists. Let's create the next generation of young people who understand quantum mechanics, quantum physics, and who are trying to explore what's beyond the stars. Let's create the next generations of doctors, someone who can come up with the cures for cancers. If we're going to expend that money, let's expend it in areas of education that can really help the American people. And that's where the American people want. The American people are crying for help right now, and they need a leader, which is me, to help them find help. And that's where they are.
Yeah, and also, with the increase in crime, it's also very much an issue that a lot of the young men who end up in jail didn't really have a father around.
Fathers and men make all the difference in the world. Come on. We know as men, you learn by watching other men. We don't necessarily, we learn by the emulation of another man, right? And we know, and this is going to get me in a lot of hot water, what I'm going to say, right? But I'm going to say it. It's like women can only go so far when it comes to raising a male child. And I'm not denoting those single moms that have had to do it. That's not what
Yeah.
I'm not taking anything away from him. But certainly you need that male role model to help that child shift into manhood, because it's something to be a man. And people respect men, period. And it's what we are in America. And I believe that if we had more men, we would have less crime in our communities, specifically in Black communities, in Hispanic communities. If we have more men at home, we would have less crime. Period. There's no doubt. I'm tired of these smash and grab people. I put a video out, and people
Yeah.
can go on YouTube to take a look at my video. I think if you smash and grab somebody's business, you need your ass whooped. That's exactly what I believe. And I don't want that. I know in California, if you don't steal $1,000, you can go free. But that hurts our economy. That
Yeah.
hurts businesses. That hurts jobs. And I am not for it. And I will work with the governor of California to make sure that I will put pressure on California as the president to make sure that that law is repealed and turned over. If you commit those low-level crimes, there should be a penalty for you to pay. You are not going to rob American businesses. That ends now.
Yeah, and sometimes I think, if you can punish that 13-year-old kid who maybe tries to steal something from the drugstore, you might stop him. But if he's allowed to get away with that, then maybe he moves on to worse things later.
Agreed. And again, fathers play an important role in that, you know, and I challenge all fathers. I know sometimes it's difficult to deal with a truculent mother to deal with the truculent mothers of our children
Yeah.
because of things that we've done to cause them to become they don't like us a lot, to make these women don't like us as men, right? But if you have a child, you need to take the responsibility of your child. And I don't care if that's just making sure you go walk your child at a park, or you take your child to the beach, or you take your child walking, or you take your child with you while you're doing things that men do, specifically if it's a male child. It's important. I think we've got to increase the value of our young women. I think that that's also driven by men. We need to show our young women you are more valuable than just a sexual piece. You are more valuable than that. You are God's gift, and a man should treat you this way. And if a man doesn't treat you in this way, then you shouldn't be with that man. You shouldn't even entertain that into your life. And that helps us all overall, but we can't do it if men are missing. And men are missing from our communities. If you go to places like Chicago, it's these young people have gone buck wild. You go to places like St. Louis, these young people have gone buck wild, and because men are missing. And so we've got to get men back into the community And we've got to get education back in the community, and we've got to change the law so that they're fair for all Americans.
Definitely. So yeah, I don't know how much cooperation you'd get from Gavin Newsom, uh, but it's worth.
Gruesome Newsom, you
Yeah,
know.
that
No,
that
you know what? There's
what do you?
pressure
Yeah,
right now. Gavin Newsom is in bed with Biden. Gavin Newsom is in bed with Biden, and it just, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of Biden, and I'm certainly tired of Gavin Newsom and what he's done to the California economy. I'm sick of it, and I just think it's now time for a change. I think America is ready for a change. I think America is ready for new leadership that represents the American people. And from all the candidates that I've seen, that person that would represent that person would be myself.
yeah. So being from California, I suppose you have an opinion on Kamala Harris.
I have to admit something to this because I know this is going to come out once I win the nomination. My friend, God rest his soul now, was my friend's name is John, and John had a party at his house. For some reason, John's last name escapes me. But John Witherspoon. John Witherspoon was my good friend. We talked hours, John and I, and he had a party at his house. Then he asked me to come out, and Kamala actually came to the party. And literally, when Kamala was first running for president of the United States, she was somebody that we at the party prayed for, that God would elevate her and that God would lift her up. We literally prayed for that to happen. With that being said, I'm very disappointed in Kamala. I'm very disappointed that of the person. She's not the leader that I would follow. Knowing where she is today and what she's done, she's not the woman not the leader that I would follow. And I don't want to say that I don't like her. I don't like her policies. I don't like what she stands for. I don't care for it at all. Period.
Yeah, and also, well, I should ask you about another Californian, Larry Elder.
Larry Elder, man, that's a I know Larry,
Yeah,
right? And Larry is Larry. I mean, I don't even know what to say about Larry. Larry is just Larry.
okay.
Larry is like the weird uncle you don't really want to talk about. Larry is just Larry, Larry, Larry is just, hey, Larry is just Larry. That's all I can really say about Larry. I don't, Larry is. I don't know. I don't know what. Larry is eclectic. Let me leave it there. Larry is very eclectic, and yeah, he's just. I don't know what I can say about Larry Elder. I know him, so I'm just like I don't really know what I can really say about it. He's not my friend, but I know him, and Larry is just yeah, he's a loopy Larry. I don't know.
I'm not sure we've there have been some interesting characters who've come out of California, of course. The also since you're a pastor, so what you obviously didn't really think the COVID policies were a good idea.
No, I think America lied to the people. I think America lied to the people.
You mean the American
Um,
government lied to the people?
the American government lied to the American people. That's what I believe. And I did not agree with the COVID policies at all. I don't agree with policies where if you go to a Walmart, somebody without a medical degree is demanding you wear a mask. I have a problem with that. You don't have a medical degree. Like, do you have even a CNA license? No. Well, why are you telling me what I can and cannot wear in America? I have a problem with that. I think that whole COVID policy um, was a severe misuse of power. I think that COVID policy was a severe encroachment on civil rights across the board, and I just think that that could have been altogether done differently. I don't think we had all the information that we needed for COVID in order to really um, come up with a plan. They made a rush judgment to vaccinate people who wanted to be healthy. They did not want to be sick. So I understand why people took the vaccination and that kind of thing. They wanted to be healthy. They didn't want to be sick. They thought the government wasn't lying to them, and they thought the government was acting in good faith. And right now, looking back, I'm not so sure that that's what happened. I think Trump lied to us. I think Trump lied to us about COVID, and I looking back, I don't agree with the COVID policy 100% at all, not even a little.
Was that what got you to leave the party, or was it kind of brewing gradually?
What got me to leave the Republican Party, I was also, a Democrat for a long time prior to being a Republican. I worked in the California Democratic um, California Democratic Party here for a very, very long time. I worked with Adelia Chestnut and that whole group of Democrats. And I'm actually the first black guy to ever run for the city council of Watts here in Los Angeles. I'm not in Los Angeles right now, but here in Los Angeles, the first African American ever run for the city council of Watts. But what really made me change my mind was when I saw the fighting and stuff that's happening inside of the party, and that the party elders' unwillingness to look at a different idea. I think they needed to look at a different idea other than Trump. I think that there needs to be a different idea for people to consider, and that lack of looking for a different idea really it rubbed me the wrong way, and I just think, you know what, it's time to do something different.
Yeah. So, yeah, I imagine it's probably, yeah. How is I don't really know that much about the inner workings of Los Angeles politics, but it's probably very interesting. Being as large, you said so. So Watts has its own city council, or is that just a council?
No, it's part of Los Angeles. It's part of the Los Angeles City Council.
But that was a district, or a district or a ward that was in Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's part of at the time it was part of the, I want to say that, I don't remember the district, the 13th district, I believe at the time. I don't know what it is today. I'm sure they gerrymandered it or whatever, but I don't know what it is today.
I'm not sure what they do. I mean, with a lot of these cities, I mean, I know there was actually a movement for one section of Los Angeles actually wanted to leave the rest of Los Angeles too. That's something that's been talked about though.
I don't see that happening.
Yeah.
I don't see that happening. I mean, it's something to draft around, but I don't see anything like that really.
Well, it's such a large city, and there's so many. I mean, not just the people.
It's diverse.
It's also much more spread out than New York or Chicago.
Yeah, it's very diverse. So yeah, definitely very diverse.
Yeah, you do have it's I mean, sometimes you'll see these little hills and mountains just in the middle of town, so you have to kind of go around those things too. It's
traffic. It's beautiful in California. Now, I've been all up and down California from Eureka to the Mexico border. It's beautiful in certain places throughout California. Like I love the mountains in Shasta. I love the beaches in San Diego and that whole area like that. I love those things. I mean, those things. And then we have mountains covered with snow. I love the mountains up in Mount Baldy and the other areas and Shasta when you ever get up that way. And those are areas that I really love. We actually have a Willow Creek. I don't know if you're old fashioned. If your mama used to whoop you and said, your head is as hard as trying to get a ship up Willow Creek. Well, there's actually a Willow Creek, and it's in California. And those are things that I really admire and love about California.
Oh yeah, I think a lot of people. California is still very. I mean, the natural beauty. There's a lot of it there. It's
yeah, definitely.
You can go to the mountains. You can go to the beach. It's definitely got some interesting. You can drive the coast, and yeah, I certainly always enjoy visiting there. It's
Is that?
Now, by the way, what happened with the California? I assume you were at the California State Convention. What happened there with the president?
The Libertarian California?
Yeah, the Libertarian Party of California. I mean, I assume you were at the convention, but they were like...
I was, yes.
The presidents had to pay to be in the debate or something like that?
Something to that effect. It didn't bother me at all. I mean, if they're trying to raise money for the party, those things didn't bother me. If that's what they wanted to do, that's what they did. I didn't really. It's not going to help you win a national election. I mean, we've got to really be real with like what can happen to help you win a national election, and things like that are not going to help you win a national election. I just take it with a grain of salt. If that's what they want to do, God bless them, keep it pushing. And that's how I looked at that. I think they're just trying ways that are different. They're trying to bring in new energy throughout the party, and the like. And I just kind of like roll with the punches when it comes to that because it's not going to help you win nationally. If we want to win this election, if we want to win the White House, we're going to need the Black community. We're going to need the Mexican community to chime on, and we're going to need the Asian community, and then we're going to have a huge split from the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is not going to support any of the current candidates. I can tell you that right now. And the Republican Party, you just need something different in there so that you can get the non-Trump Republicans, and then you've got a race. And so what they're trying to do in California is try to really, push for diversity and push for change inside of the party itself, and that's going to be very difficult because everybody is running for president, but they're running to win the Libertarian nomination. They're not running to win the president, to win the White House. And I'm running to win the White House. And to me, winning the White House makes all the difference in the world. And I think that this is the year to get it done. I think if the right candidate is chosen, and which is me, I think if I'm chosen, then we can win the White House. We could really set America on fire, and the Libertarian Party will become more diverse and grow. People talk about, and I've heard this through many debates. I've heard it so much until it's become a rhetoric, so to speak, is we need to grow the Libertarian Party. Well, the only way you're going to actually grow the Libertarian Party is to actually create diversity inside of the party. And if we want to have that diversity to grow the party and really get things done, we've got to have an open mind. And so in California, they're really, the gentleman is really trying to have an open mind about how to get things done. And it didn't really bother me. I didn't care one way or the other. It makes no difference to me. It made no difference to me. As the other ones make no difference to me because that's not going to get me the American vote.
Certainly, since you've been in media, what would be your plan? How would you utilize the media? What do you think are the best ways to utilize the media nowadays?
I think once I win the nomination from the Libertarian Party, I think once I win the nomination, that is going to be a catalyst for media in and of itself. And then I think we put together a phenomenal, which I will do. I will put together a phenomenal media team that helps drive engagement because now it becomes real. It's not just you're having a conversation. You now have a legitimate third party candidate who could literally win. You have a legitimate third party candidate who could beat Robert Kennedy Jr. We have a literate third party candidate who could now become the president of the United States, provided that we get on the ballots in the key states such as New York, which I'm fighting for right now, Illinois, which I'm fighting for right now, and Alabama. We need those key states so that we can have enough electoral college votes to win. And I think that's where this is going to be a really big advantage for the party. And I think we use media from that point of view because you're going to have inside of the Black community as great a job or as great a person that Barack Obama is. And I say this not being not being loyal to Barack Obama or anything to that effect, but a lot of people see inside of the Black community, they don't really see him as the first Black president. But you have a guy like me, my everybody, they're going to have a different approach to that. Like this is the first true Black president because my parents are Black. You understand? My grandfather was Black. My great grandfather is Black. They're all my great grandmother, my grandmother. So there's going to be this whole different dichotomy going on, and that's going to help drive media. And believe it or not, media follows urban culture. Media follows these types of things, and I think the conversation could be had. And I'm probably one of the few people that are just saying, you know what, we're sick of Trump. You don't hear a lot of people just saying, we're just totally sick of Trump. If he wins the office, he's gonna go into as a lame duck president, and we all know historically lame duck presidents don't get anything done. It's just unless you're executing agenda from prior. So why put a lame duck in the office? He's just a lame duck Trump. That's all he is. And so I think it's something. I think is something. And you got bumbling Biden. Who wants bumbling Biden in there? Yeah, he'll make a great grandfather for somebody, but we don't want him running the country anymore. So you've got lame duck Trump and bumbling Biden, and it's time for change. And I represent that change in America, and I'm confident about that. So I think that it's time for a change. It's time for a change inside of the Libertarian Party, and it's time to really look at what do we have to do to win. Can these guys win an election? And the answer is no. Are they great guys? Yes. Should they be in the administration? Yes, but they can't win an election.
Since speaking of ballot access in New York, if you contacted Larry Sharpeny, because I know he's working on that.
Yes. I've been in contact with the president of the Libertarian Party there in New York. And we've actually over the last few days, we put together a really nice little consensus. I'm using my celebrity relationships. I have tremendous celebrity relationships there in New York, and we're going to get that. We're going to get on the ballot in New York, and we're going to get on the ballot in Illinois, and we're going to get on the ballot in Alabama. That's going to give us a whole new look.
Who are your relationships in New York? Or your celebrity relationships you're talking about?
Oh man, my celebrity relationships. I'm in television for a long time. I've worked with Warner Brothers. I've worked with Sony Music, with all these companies. I work with pretty much everybody. Every celebrity is specifically. I've worked with almost every celebrity, probably with the exception of Tom Cruise. I haven't worked with Tom Cruise yet, but pretty much all the rest of them, I've either partied with them or work with them or talk to them or whatever. So I have tremendous relationships, and we're going to open the door on those relationships, and we're going to get our signatures.
Who do you think do you think you could get some of these famous people involved with the Libertarian Party? I know a lot of them aren't libertarians, but I can certainly think of a few that might be.
Who would you think of?
Kurt Russell.
Okay.
Woody Harrelson.
I could see Woody.
Sometimes he flirts with this, but Clint Eastwood, although he's getting old now.
Yeah. You can't say enough about Clint Eastwood. I like Clint Eastwood. He's a great actor. I like Clint Eastwood. You can't say enough about him. Clint Eastwood could be president if he so desired. I mean, literally, he's got that machivo, if you would say. He could be president if he so desired. Yeah. If I was running against Clint Eastwood, I'd have to drop out because he would totally win.
And although not Hollywood, but I would love to see Aaron Rodgers get involved.
Not familiar with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I don't know. Well, I don't know if he's with Green Bay now, but he was with Green Bay forever. So, yeah.
I think that we're overlooking the tremendous effects of the urban community there in New York, and I think that once you go urban, you'll have more success in terms of ballot access and that kind of thing like that. And I think that we have to look at that from a different perspective. I mean, we have to look at the Jay-Z's of the world. We have to look at the Commons of the world. We have to look at those kinds of people of the world to really make some things happen inside of the understanding and flexing their political power. And I think once we do that, then I think we have more chance at ballot access.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I don't know as much about the situation with ballot access in Illinois as I do here, but those are two huge states. It would definitely be New York being those would be the fourth. I believe those are still the fourth and fifth most populous states in America right now. Those would be major losses. I mean,
we need those. We're going to get them. We're working on it right now. I'm planning an event right now for Illinois. And I'm planning a really huge event, and we should be able to get all of our signatures at that one event. And then the Mexican people have fallen in love with me. And so we're working right now to put together a large Mexican event in New York, one event, and we should be able to get all of our signatures at that one event. They're going to give me the Staff of Unity as because of my support, in the minority community. And I think those Staff of Unity events, you have thousands and thousands of people of Latin culture come out, and we're gonna put those things together, and it's going to be exciting. We're working on it right now. We just literally jumped into it in the last 48 hours, and so we've been working tremendously to make this come together. So I'm excited about the possibilities right now, and I'm excited about becoming the presidential nominee for the Libertarian Party. I think I think the party, once you, as a whole, see us pull this off, they've got to know that we're going to have the juice to win the election, and I think that that's what's going to be the difference.
Yeah. So since you've always lived in California, did you consider running for governor 2 years ago?
No, no, I never. I get a chance to work with these guys, and it's pretty cool, but I never wanted to run for governor of California. I mean, I get a chance to work. And plus, right now, Gavin has a very strong hold. You'd waste a lot of money trying to do that from that point of view, with the way that he's tied into the entertainment industry and how they give him such support in that area. So you have to look at things a little bit differently in California. It needs to be You need somebody who's almost a celebrity of sort that has a great political background or that can think politically to win California. You need an Arnold Schwarzenegger type person to really snatch it down again. Or wait till his term is up or whatever, and then go for it.
Yeah. What offices have you run for?
I've, my only office I ever actually ran for was for City Council of Watts, throughout the 15th. It's the 15th district in Los Angeles. That's the office I ran for. But I've affected policies across the nation. I supported my son, and I quarterbacked his run for against Maxine Waters. My son is Joe Collins, the third, and I supported him against not supported, but I actually quarterbacked him against his run with Maxine Waters. We raised a tremendous amount of money in that race, and he did really, really, really well. But I've affected policy. I've lobbied with state governments. My last lobby was in the state of Indiana. We got film tax credits passed, or I got film tax credits passed there in the state of Indiana, and I just lobby for legislation to make changes. And that's not a just. Those things are very difficult to do, actually. But I've lobbied for legislation.
Certainly. So yeah, that was in Sacramento. You said that was in Sacramento or where?
No, I worked in Senator Albert S. Rada's office in Sacramento
Okay.
many years ago, and I served as his staff liaison, and many years ago, Senator Albert S. Rada. And then, but no, that was in Indiana where we got the film tax credit fast. I worked with everyone at the state level. We got a unanimous vote to get film tax credits passed to bring more business to Indiana. Hmm.
Okay. So what's your take on foreign policy right now?
Which part of foreign policy?
Well, do you think the U.S. should be involved in all this stuff? I mean, what do you
No.
think about it? Yeah. So just stay out of Israel and their wars.
Stay out of a lot of wars. We involve ourselves in these little wars that cause Americans to lose lives for of our veterans, of our children, and we need to stay out of a lot of wars. I mean, we should just we have to detach ourselves to some extent from some of these stupid wars. If these countries want to go to war, if we don't have an interest in it other than oil or other things like that, we should stay out of those wars. We should not commit to any of those kinds of things. I mean, if we're sending billions of dollars over to the Ukraine, that money should be done here in America. That money should be spent in America. That money should be spent on building the next generation of companies here in America. That money should be spent on education, on infrastructure. And that money should be spent on technologies to help us move goods easier, faster, and cheaper. And so, no, we should not be involved in these wars. We should stay out of them for the most part. I know they say, well, these are our allies. Well, listen, ally up right. I just think that this is, that's why I think that a guy like Mike Termat, and I'm just going to throw this out there, would make a great Secretary of State, and he can go over there and really help deal with this and keep the policy and things like that in place. Those are the kinds of moves that I would make to help really make our country strong from around the world.
Okay, yeah. So that's because I think sometimes we just be strong by leading by example.
Example, strong by leading by example.
I got to know, have you
And,
been paying?
and I want to say this too. I believe in a strong military. So it's sort of a dichotomy for the Libertarian Party because I do believe in being ready if things come our way. If things come our way, we should be the most ready. We should be the most effective war machine on the planet. But at the same time, let's try not to go to war. Let's avoid these things. Let's try not to let's get our energy policies correct because most of our wars are driven by energy. So if our energy policies were correct in America, we could clean up a lot of stuff and not be involved in these things. And that to me is very, very, very important. I think I think Chase Oliver has a pretty good energy idea, in terms of bringing nuclear and other types of energy sources to life. And I think he has a very good idea. And I think we should see how we can use spent nuclear fuel to generate new energy for Americans. We don't want to have another Texas take place where all those people die because because the Texas power grid collapsed because of weather. And people died in that thing. They were not prepared for severe weather in that way. So we need to think about energy from a whole different perspective here in America. And we've got to think about how we can turn the generator to get power. What are we doing? Are we using centrifugal force? Are we using nuclear? Are we using solar? Are we using solar light power? What are we doing to turn a generator to get power? And to me, that is the most important thing, and that reduces the cost of energy and the cost of living in America. And I think Chase Oliver has a great idea on those areas.
Yeah. So, I want to ask one last question. Have you been paying any attention to Javier Milei in Argentina?
Oh yeah, who doesn't? Come on, man! I'm a player. Of
Yeah.
course, you pay attention
Well, I've
to that,
definitely
man.
been paying.
Hey, I'm going to go get my chainsaw tomorrow. I'm going to be like whacking my chainsaw just like this. I
Yeah.
meant to have my chainsaw right here. We're going to
Yeah.
cut this stuff out.
I'm really wondering and asked somebody, you said, do you think the Brazilian MMA fighter was influenced by Milei? He said, yes, he was. Yeah. So even though he's Brazilian, it's right there. Yes. So, it's been great. It's been great talking to you. Where can we find you? It's your website. You're on
Sure.
Twitter.
Yeah, definitely. Our website is josephcollinsjr.com. Very easy, josephcollinsjr.com. Go there. Our phone number is you gotta call me directly, 909-486-4742. I would love to talk with you, and see what
Yeah.
we can do in that way. And hey, I want to, Chris, thank you for having me on your show today, man. It's been really, really a good show. I hope you learned some things about me. I hope I earned your vote today because that's what I want. I came on this. I came on this show. See, Chris, you don't know me, Chris. You don't know me, Chris. I came on this show to win your vote. If I can win your vote, I can get everybody else's vote. That's why I'm here, Chris. That's why I'm here, Chris.
You're definitely making the case for having pastors run for office because I think, and I was very impressed by your media background too. People who've worked in media understand media. They're going to know how to get media. I mean, even if you don't get the nomination, it sounds like you could definitely be of service to the candidate who does.
Well, I'm going to get the nomination because you're going to vote for me. You might as well come on and tell me you're going to vote for me. If you don't vote for me, when I get there, I'm going to knock you out. I'm going to say, where's Chris? I got to knock him out. I got to knock him out because he didn't tell everybody. Chris, you got to tell everybody to vote for me, Chris.
Yeah. You're reminding me of George Foreman right now.
But that's what this is about. We got to think
because
different.
nobody thought George would win, and George won. It's
That's right. That's what I'm saying. And you got to, that's what I'm saying, Chris. Once you tell everybody you're gonna vote for me, Chris, and everybody else gonna fall in line. Can't nobody else do this job better than me. I'm the one, Chris. I'm the one. Can't nobody. I float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Nobody is a better libertarian than me. I'm the greatest of all time. So that's what we got to do, Chris. That's why I need your vote, Chris.
this is great. Yeah. Okay. Please buy my novel. Escape from Substack. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'm Chris Baker, and we're out.
All right. God bless.
Yeah.